And we are live for Thursday night football. What's going on, everybody? It is a great game tonight between the Eagles and the Vikings. I cannot wait for this one. Projected to be one of the higher scoring games of the week. Got a little double Sam action there. How are we doing? I hope everyone had a fantastic week one. It was a fun and absolutely crazy week one. I would expect nothing less from week one. And tonight we get to see the Philadelphia Eagles coming off a very tight win against the New England Patriots, matching up against the Minnesota Vikings, who are coming off a pretty tough loss in week one. We're going to break down everything about this game, every decision you need to make in fantasy. We'll get to those Thursday night start sit questions. As always, let me know what your Thursday night start sit question is. The Vikings lose 20-17 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They were pretty big favorites in this game. I do think the Buccaneers defense looked a little underrated in that game. But man, what a more difficult matchup in week two they have against the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think people might be underrating a little bit just how good that Patriots defense was in week one. I expect, what's the problem with Swift tonight? Yes, we're going to talk a lot about DeAndre Swift on this live. I think DeAndre Swift is absolutely in play. If you need a running back in PPR leagues, I will pull up his game logs here on the live, but they were not great for DeAndre Swift in week one. He got dominated in snaps, touches from Kenneth Gainwell, but Kenneth Gainwell's out tonight. And Swift is really the next guy up in this offense, so I don't hate him tonight, but I am a little bit nervous. He played 29% of the snaps in week one, only 19 total snaps. He had 1 carry and 2 targets. He had 1 catch for 0 yards. His 1 carry went for 3 yards. Not the type of usage you want for a guy in your starting lineup. That being said, again, Kenneth Gainwell, he dominated the snaps in that game. Kenneth Gainwell's out tonight. Swift and Boston Scott, they were the only other running backs active in week one. Rashad Penny was a healthy scratch, guys, in week one. I still think he'll get some touches tonight, and he will be active tonight. But you got to believe DeAndre Swift and Boston Scott will play ahead of him after he was a healthy scratch in week one. Kenneth Gainwell played 62% of the snaps. I do think Boston Scott, DeAndre Swift, they should handle most of the carries and targets in this backfield. But yeah, DeAndre Swift, he's definitely not a lock. I would not say DeAndre Swift is a lock. I would not put him in the must-start category. I think there's lots of running backs I would prefer to start over DeAndre Swift. But if you really need to force him in there, like I'd start him over Antonio Gibson. Madison over Tyler Algier, that's a tight one. I do not think Alexander Madison is a must start tonight by any means. I think Alexander Madison is a pretty sketchy start, honestly. If I was betting Alexander Madison, I would be taking his unders. Alexander Madison, last week, he had good usage, 73% of the snaps. He did see 11 carries, 4 targets for 15 total opportunities. It's not terrible. It's also not great. And tonight he gets one of the better defensive lines in the NFL in a game that the Vikings are 6.5-point underdogs. You really need Alexander Madison to come through in the passing game for him to return value this week. Just like last week, he had 4 targets. He caught 3 of those, and he ended up scoring a receiving touchdown to save his week. He would have been outside the top 40 running backs had he not scored a touchdown. So yeah, I'm nervous for him on the ground tonight. I think he can get enough catches to be viable in PPR leagues if you don't have any other options. Okay. We're live on TikTok. We're live on YouTube. Going to get to as many of these Thursday night start sits as I possibly can. Also, I have what kind of my thoughts laid out on the YouTube live scrolling at the bottom of the screen, on the TikTok live above me. There's some guys you just absolutely have to start. So let's knock those guys out first. Jalen Hurts, he's the number 1 overall quarterback in my opinion this week. You could probably argue Mahomes or Josh Allen also. For me, it's Jalen Hurts, guys. This Minnesota Vikings defense is not intimidating. Jalen Hurts is coming off a not so great game against the Patriots, but this Vikings defense is nowhere near that Patriots defense. And Jalen Hurts still managed to throw the ball 33 times against the Pats. He did throw a touchdown. He also had 9 carries. For me, that's why I put Jalen Hurts as the number 1 QB this week. It is that rushing upside over Mahomes. But I think Jalen Hurts, Mahomes, Allen, they're the pretty clear top 3 still in this week. All 3 of them have pretty decent matchups. Yeah, you're starting Jalen Hurts for sure. Obviously, Justin Jefferson, don't need to really even talk much about him. A.J. Brown, I shouldn't have to talk much about him either. I will talk about Devontae Smith just a little bit because I maintain my take that Devontae Smith is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL. He might be the most underrated receiver, and he gets some respect. Like he is going, he went in the late second round, early third round in fantasy drafts, some respect from fantasy drafters. But in reality, guys, AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, they have about the same amount of targets going back to the start of last season in the games that they've played together. Devontae Smith is really on the same tier as AJ Brown, and I don't think that's how many people view him. Devontae Smith does not come off the field. He's had 10 targets last week. He only turned that into 47 yards. He did end up scoring a touchdown, but I think this is a massive, massive blow-up spot for both AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, and I absolutely do think Devontae Smith should be started in all situations. I think he's a top 10 wide receiver in PPR leagues in week 2, so absolutely you got to start Devontae Smith. Hopefully that's clear to everyone that has Devontae Smith. Lastly, the tight ends, and I will get to some of these Madison questions because I'm seeing a lot of Alexander Madison questions. As expected, a lot of DeAndre Swift questions, Jordan Addison, Kirk Cousins. Those are the guys in the fringe start category that I do think in a lot of cases you can consider, but I definitely would not shove them into your starting lineup with a ton of confidence. And I would, in a lot of cases, I'm going to tell people to bench Alexander Madison, DeAndre Swift, Jordan Addison, Kirk Cousins tonight. By the way, last Thursday night, I was getting a lot of heat in the comments for saying Noah Gray maybe wasn't a great start. Maybe all of the Chiefs receivers were a little sketchy. We did not get that legacy game from Sky Moore, and that ended up panning out pretty well overall in the Thursday night last week. So hopefully you can be as on it tonight. It's all about the process, though, guys. You got to have a good process. You got to start the right guys and then see where the cards lay. Okay. The last 2 must starts tonight in almost all spots. Basically, unless you have Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews, I do expect both of those guys to play this week. So if you have those guys, I would hold out hope this week. I would. I'm not obviously guaranteeing those guys play this week. They are still technically questionable. They're not practicing in full technically. But my sense of those situations is that they will play this week. And those guys have enough of a ceiling that I'm willing to hold out hope for them, even if I have a tight end playing tonight. But if I don't have one of those 2 guys, I'm starting TJ Hawkins tonight, and I'm starting Dallas Goedert tonight. 100%. I know Goedert, he put up, I think, a goose egg. Did he have 0 points? I think Goedert maybe had 0 points in week 1. Maybe his worst fantasy week in his career. 0 points. He played 92% of the snaps. He had 1 target. Dallas Goedert, 1 target by far his worst game that he's had. He has not had a game under 1 point. I'm going back now to 2020. I can't find a game where he had a donut. And I would definitely still start Dallas Goedert with a decent amount of confidence tonight if you have him. Again, only really cases I'm benching Hawkinson and Goddard is if I have Kelce and Andrews. I think I'd start both guys. I think I'd start both of them over Waller. Waller's in that same tier. It's pretty close. I'd start them both over Kittle. You're starting both those tight ends pretty much no matter what. Okay. With the must starts out of the way, again, you got to start Jalen Hurts, Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, TJ Hawkins, and Dallas Goedert. We got that out of the way. I'll probably repeat that a couple more times in the live. But let's get to these fringe starts now, because these fringe starts are really the tough decisions of the night. So first of all, we got this start sit question in the YouTube live. DeAndre Swift or Alexander Madison. So let me bring up the WalterPicks app here. Let's do this comparison in the WalterPicks app. If you're watching live on TikTok, guys, I'm also live on YouTube. And YouTube's just a little bit better of a live streaming viewing experience because you can see, I can share my computer screen on the live. Link is right in the TikTok bio. You press your finger away. From the YouTube live, if you're watching live on TikTok, I'm telling you, it's worth it. It's all the same information, but even a better viewing experience. And it's a little more likely I can bring your comment up on the screen too. Anyways, let's compare DeAndre Swift and Madison. I have a pretty strong sense that the answer here is going to be close. And it is. And I would have guessed that DeAndre Swift would have been projected under Alexander Madison. But we actually, in the WalterPicks app, we have DeAndre Swift projected ahead of Alexander Madison. And really this comes back to the game script and what's expected to happen in this game. And I'm taking the Eagles -6.5 in this game. For the record, I'm 7-9 against the spread. Spreads are tough, but I have a pretty good feeling tonight about the Eagles absolutely blowing the lid off of the Vikings. This is a matchup that is not a good one for the Minnesota Vikings. The Eagles' strengths are an elite offensive line and an elite offense. The Vikings do not have a good defense. The Eagles will put up 30+ points in this game. Meanwhile, the Vikings' weakness is their offensive line. Another strength of the Eagles, the defensive line. They have a top 3 defensive line in the NFL. They basically took in the draft all of the Georgia defensive linemen. So you absolutely have to like the defensive line and the defense for the Eagles tonight to win up front. That's not good news for Alexander Madison. The good news for Alexander Madison, though, again, was his receiving workload in week 1. He played 73% of the snaps and he did see 4 targets. So you got to hope if you have Alexander Madison that he gets some catches tonight for PPR leagues. That is where his touchdown came from in the passing game in week 1. So I don't hate Madison. I like Swift more. Again, Kenneth Gainwell's out this week. So the game log for Swift last week was disgusting. He played 29% of the snaps. He touched the ball two touches, 1 carry, 1 catch. That was it. Nothing to get excited about for DeAndre Swift, but he is pretty clearly, in my opinion, the most talented running back that the Eagles have tonight. They are 6.5-point favorites. They should be playing with the lead. I do expect Boston Scott to mix in. I even expect Rashad Penny, who was a healthy scratch, to mix in. That's why DeAndre Swift is not a must start. He is a fringe start. I would start DeAndre Swift over Alexander Mattison. I do agree with this one from the WalterPicks app. Just the defensive matchup, I think, is better for Swift than it is for matchup in the game script. I expect to be better for Swift than for Madison. But that being said, I kind of disagree with the app here about the bust probabilities, because I expect Alexander Mattison to be on the field significantly more than DeAndre Swift. I think best case scenario tonight for Swift is like a 50-55% snap share. Madison's probably going to get close to that 72-75% snap share he had in week 1. So there's definitely a higher floor, in my opinion, for Madison, just playing time wise, touch wise. But I think the ceiling is high enough for Swift over Madison that I would play Swift over Alexander Mattison. Swift or Deion Jackson? Yep, Deion Jackson. He should pretty much be on the waiver wire at this point. I've always been anti Deion Jackson. He is essentially a special teams player who is being forced to get touches at running back, and it shows when he's on the field. Do not trust Deion Jackson. Absolutely start Swift and start Madison over Deion Jackson. Rashad White or Gibbs? Yeah, you're not benching Jahmyr Gibbs anytime soon. All right, we got a Swift or Kittle question here. And yeah, I'm always team do not start 2 tight ends. So yeah, I would start DeAndre Swift over George Kittle. All right, to recap really quickly, before I get to some more of these Thursday night start sit questions, the guys that you absolutely need to start tonight: Jalen Hurts, Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, T.J. Hawkinson, Dallas Goedert. Almost no exceptions. Start all of those players. This should be a high-scoring, good game for fantasy football. The guys that I'm on the fringe about: Alexander Mattison, DeAndre Swift, Jordan Addison, even Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk Cousins realistically is a top 10 quarterback in week 2, because the Vikings guys, they threw the ball over 70% of the time in week 1 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who also have a good defensive line. I think the Eagles destroy the Minnesota Vikings in this game. I think you have to start Jalen Hurts, Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, T.J. Hawkinson, Dallas Goedert. And then I'm on the fringe. I'm on the edge. I don't think you need to start these guys unless necessary with Alexander Mattison, DeAndre Swift, Jordan Addison, Kirk Cousins. I am pretty excited for Jordan Addison and DeAndre Swift and Kirk Cousins, honestly, a little bit too. I think all these guys have upside. That's why you can talk yourself into starting them tonight. Kirk Cousins in the WalterPicks app, he is the QB9 in the WalterPicks app for week 2. And again, it's partially because of this pass rate for the Minnesota Vikings. They were extremely, extremely pass heavy. The bust probability, a little bit sketchy though here for Kirk Cousins. Again, if you're watching live on TikTok, come to YouTube Live. You can see some of the stuff I'm talking about right on screen. The link is right in the TikTok bio. But yeah, Kirk Cousins, a high risk, high reward play tonight in a game that they're going to be trailing most of the time. Also, to shout out the WalterPicks app, guys, it is 100% free to download. I'm showing it on the YouTube Live right now. What you get, like, this is completely free for everybody, what I'm showing right now. But also, if you start a 7-day free trial in the WalterPicks app, you'll be able to sync all of your leagues from ESPN, Sleeper, and Yahoo and get personalized insights for those leagues from the app, completely free for 7 days. And it's only $5 a month after that. Check it out. It's the number one way you could possibly support me and the entire WalterPicks team as well. So do appreciate everyone trying out the WalterPicks app. Link to that is in the YouTube description and in the TikTok bio. Shout out to all of our WalterPicks subscribers. Yeah, I use it. Appreciate that, Sam. And I know a lot of the people in the comments use the WalterPicks app too, because if you're in this live stream, guys, you are probably in the top 99th percentile of fantasy gamers out there that's tuned in to the WalterPicks live stream. So I shout out to all of you using the WalterPicks app seriously. And I know even when you use the app, sometimes you want to get a second opinion on the start sit. And that's why I'm here. That's what I do. And I absolutely love doing. All right, let's get to some more start sits here. Rashad White or DeAndre Swift. And yeah, to me, honestly, Mr. Jones, I think this one's pretty easy. I'm going Rashad White. And I've seen a lot of negative stuff out there about about Rashad White. Let me actually do this comparison on screen. Hopefully Walter agrees with me. I'm not sure if he will or not on this one, but Rashad White's usage was extremely encouraging. Yeah, and we have him Walter has him at RB15 in week 2. Swift is at RB25 here, and I agree with this projection. Rashad White didn't come off the field very much in week 1. It was a really encouraging, actually, week 1, despite him scoring only 7 fantasy points. He played 80% of the snaps. That was near the top of the league at the running back position. Josh Jacobs led the league in week 1 in snap percentage at like 81 or 82%. Rashad White, not that far behind him there in snap percentage. He had 17 carries and 2 targets. I was honestly a little disappointed about his receiving role in week 1. I do think that will expand, though, as time goes on. And it's just such a better matchup for him in week 2 against the Bears. They got crushed by Aaron Jones last week. I think Rashad White can do some similar stuff in the pass game. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about Rashad White. To me, we saw his floor in week 1. He's going to be out there a ton. He's clearly the best running back on the team. They clearly believe in him. I think he's one of these kind of dead zone running backs